'76, the Dead launched this massive spring tour, and we get tickets for a bunch of shows. A couple of nights at the Beacon in New York, a couple of nights at the Capitol Theater in Passaic, New Jersey, and then my brother Joe and I are like camping in New Jersey, not far from the gig. And it was like kind of like a bon voyage for him because he was going into the Army the following week. So we're having like a last hurrah. And I'll never forget that gig. It was so hot in the venue. I get outside and I pass out. And he's got two friends there. One of them is this beautiful girl. I start to wake up and she's got me like in her arms trying to revive me. And I'm like, this is great, you know? Anyway, she stayed with me and made sure I was okay. And I always loved her for that. I think her name was Abby Cohen. That was a fun night, something I'll never forget. But, you know, getting home was like a little bit of a thing. But we didn't care because the next night they were on the radio and we were there and we were sitting all the way upstairs. But it was Allison Steele, the Nightbird from WNEW, was like hosting the show from the stage. And I was like, wow, that's what Allison Steele looks like. She's the one that always had that super sexy voice.
Fly with me. Allison Steele, the Nightbird. At WNEW-FM in stereo.
Cool, man, you know, totally into it. So what happens is they go off the air, they end the broadcast, and the crowd goes mental. I've never seen this happen before. Then the Dead decide to come out for an encore. And they do this long version of Not Fade Away. And it's great, but it doesn't get on the air. Okay, many years later, we get a soundboard recording. And of course, Not Fade Away is there. So it didn't fade away. And I got a copy of it. I want to tell you how it's gonna be. You know, amongst all the stellar Dead shows I've seen, '76 was a great year. And then, you know, a couple of months later, they played in Roosevelt Stadium, which is this minor league baseball place in Jersey City. The place was like a giant beer can. What a flea pit. But it was fun. They had a lot of gigs there, but it's mostly Bill Graham bringing in, like, you know, bands that could have been in much bigger venues, like Dead, Yes, Rod Stewart, but I only went to see the Dead there. And it was great. That venue was one of the first to have black and white video screens. And then many years later on YouTube, I find the gig. And I'm sitting there watching it going, this is amazing. It's just like I remembered it, you know? How often does that happen? So cool. Many other great gigs in '76. But let's get on to '77 with a stellar Grateful Dead tour. Spring '77, what a classic Dead tour. First of all, they're playing really small venues. My friends and I are online at this record store on Long Island like all morning. And, the people that own the record store are freaking out because people are like pushing and breaking the glass. And, you know, there were always scenes like that whenever the Dead had tickets go on sale. But anyway, nonetheless, there were 5 nights in New York at the Beacon. We got tickets for like every night. And a couple of the nights we got really good seats, like way up front, like the kind of seats that you can't believe it. You know, people would spend thousands on StubHub. But back then we didn't have StubHub. We just had these scalper dudes that had like business cards. This one guy I knew, he had the funniest business card. Nothing to do with tickets. It was like, you know, fillet of fish, something like that, something really goofy. Like, that's what he does. He sells fish. Characters back then. But like, I liked these guys because I knew them. They were always around, and you only call them if you needed them. They wouldn't completely rip you off. Like, I'd pay double for whatever. I remember I could not get tickets for Elvis Costello with Squeeze. Turned out to be the best tour ever. And the seats we got were stellar, like front row in the loge at the Beacon, you know, but they were like double face value. which back then was nothing. And, you know, if you needed to go, like, that was the price you had to pay, which is nothing compared to, like, what things cost these days. In 77, you know, we get tickets for all those nights at the Beacon, and it's incredible. They're just on fire. Every gig is different, and this is when they're premiering stuff from Terrapin Station. So for the first time, they're doing Fire on a Mountain, and, you know, that jam from Scarlet Begonias into Fire on a Mountain. And, God, they were so good. Like, you just sit there going, this is freaking amazing, you know? Like, what a band. And, you know, the whole gig would just waft over you like this, you know, blanket of sound, just like a sound bath with the Grateful Dead.